Well, folks, we are here to talk about feedback and giving effective feedback, and in particular, the thing that really surprises people, gets us objections that people really don't have an easy time with in our guidance about how to give effective feedback as a leader, and it is that we recommend that you ask for permission before you give feedback. Now, the model that we recommend it's kind of an adaptation of the COIN model. COIN, context, observation, insight, and next. And there are a lot of great things that I can say about the COIN model. If you're interested in the COIN model, feel free to reach out to me and ask about it. Feel free also to Google it or ask ChatGPT or Perplexity or any of those other places where you can learn things. The COIN model is out there. The the place where our method differs from all of the other COIN model explanations that I've seen is in that beginning, that first step, the context. And so, it's the context for us includes more than it does in other places. In other places, you'll see C, context stands for uh, are you in public or are you in private? And some people will say praise in public, criticize in private. I think that's great. And when it comes to feedback specifically, if you're trying to be effective with your feedback, in other words, you're trying to encourage future behavior to be effective, then I think it should all be in private. Hey, can I give you some feedback? If the answer is yes, here's the thing that you did that was great that I would like for you to continue. Right. So that's happening in private just as well as here's the thing that you did that is not optimal and that I'd like for you to do different in the future. In both of those cases, our recommendation is that you're doing that not in front of others, but in private. So the context that other COIN model teachers will tell you is simply, uh, are you in public? Are you in private? One of the adaptations that we recommend is you are in private every single time. There is no one around to overhear you, just you and the person to whom you're giving feedback. Again, another part of the context for us is that this is in the context of a strong and trusting relationship. And so you've been working and are working overtime. You're working to build a strong relationship of trust. You and this other person with whom you work, maybe it's somebody who reports to you. And so you are working hard to build a strong relationship of trust. If you've got a strong relationship of trust, then your feedback is going to land more effectively with greater respect and greater weight if you've built that strong relationship of trust and respect in advance. And that's true whether what you're giving them is kudos and congratulations, or whether what you're giving them is some adjustment, some correction. Either way, your feedback is going to land with greater weight, greater solidity, and greater influence if you've built that strong relationship of trust. So that's another piece of the context. So far, I think I'm not saying anything that you might find objectionable. The thing that people object to when we train leaders like you in delivering effective feedback is that it begins with the question, hey, Brenda, hey, George, can I give you some feedback? That's a question. And I recommend that it's an honest question. The question is, can I give you some feedback? And the answer might be no. And if the answer is no, I'm going to say, okay, thanks. And I'm done. The conversation is over. I'm moving on with my life. You're moving on with your life. And right now, I am not going to give you any feedback. And the objection that I hear time and time again is, wait, if I'm the leader, if I'm the manager, if I'm the CEO, then it's my job to give them feedback. What do you mean I'm going to ask them to give feedback? And here's the thing. I agree with you 100%. It is your job to give feedback. And so, of course, you must give feedback. It's part of your job. You're going to be giving feedback And still, I'm going to recommend that the question is honest. The answer can be no. And when you hear the answer no, what you're going to hear implied in that is not right now. So it is your job to give feedback. It is not your job to give ineffective feedback. It is your job to give effective feedback. And so let's talk about a couple of the reasons that it's so important to ask first before you deliver the feedback, whether it's congratulatory feedback or whether it's corrective feedback, to ask first. One of the reasons to ask first is that as leaders, we want the respect of those whom we deliver. What do we mean? What do I mean by respect? And this is a word that's so often used in business and in team settings without being effectively defined. So what I mean by respect is that people listen, people try on what we're saying, people listen to what we're saying, even if it seems perhaps objectionable, as what I'm saying to you right now may seem objectionable. We listen as if there is value, and we're on the hunt for the value rather than being on the hunt for what's wrong with what you're saying, what's incorrect, what are its weaknesses. That's what I mean when I say respect. Those are the behaviors of respect rather than the feeling of respect. The behaviors of respect, listening for understanding and listening for the value rather than listening for the weaknesses. So we want the respect of those that we're giving feedback to. If we come out and we just say, hey, here's the feedback that I've got for you, then very likely we are going to lose respect. And so the feedback that we're going to be giving is ineffective, and we're setting ourselves up for a future of even more ineffective feedback. Even if we deliver feedback effectively in the future, then we're delivering it into a relationship with less trust and respect. And so the future feedback isn't going to be effective either. In order to get respect, what's the most powerful thing that we as leaders can do? It is to give respect, to show respect. And here I'm defining respect as that acknowledgement that humans are individuals and that they have autonomy and that they are sensitive machines. And so by asking for your permission to give you feedback, I am showing you respect. And by showing you respect that's true and honest and sincere, I'm much more likely to get your respect in return. And therefore, we're going to have a more effective working relationship. And whatever feedback I give you now or in the future is much more likely to land with the kind of weight and influence that we want it to land with. So respect, building and developing respect. That's reason number one for asking this question. Can I give you some feedback before actually delivering the feedback? Reason number two is very similar and related. In order to get trust, give trust. And so very often when I'm talking to leaders and training them in the COIN method, as we at the YesWorks train people to use it, starting with this question, can I give you some feedback? When you ask somebody, can I give you some feedback, instead of simply giving it to them, you're showing trust. And part of the objection that people have, hey, I can't ask for permission because I have to give feedback, is that when I dig into tell me more by saying, tell me more about that objection, tell me more about, but I need to give them feedback. They very often, what I hear underneath that objection is the mistrust that the person that you are managing will ever want to hear that feedback. They don't want my feedback. I have to give it to them. I have to force feed it to them because they don't want it. And so I think about, what happens if I were to try to shove some chocolate down my daughter's throat? What is the chances that she's going to receive that chocolate readily? They're pretty much zero, even though chocolate is her very favorite food. If I think you are not going to, I really want you to eat this chocolate, so I'm going to shove it down your throat because I don't trust that you're going to eat it on your own. Well, then I am, by demonstrating my lack of trust, by coming with this attitude and approach of mistrust, I'm going to get mistrust in return. And so by asking the honest and sincere, the real question, hey, can I give you some feedback? I am showing trust that even though you may not want this feedback right now, I trust that you want my feedback. I trust that you are going to continually improve and refine your performance. I trust that you are going to do a good job. I trust that this relationship is strong. I trust that our communication and our relationship can withstand a no from you right now. I trust you. When I say, can I give you some feedback? I am saying, I trust you. You have my trust. And therefore, I am going to receive more trust in return. That's the very nature of trust, is that when we give it, we receive it in return. If not 100% of the time, then certainly the majority of the time. And when we force feed people, we undermine trust 100% of the time. So this is a really good wager. This is a very good bet to extend my trust, and will almost every time yield trust in return. So this is a solid investment. And then the third reason to ask, hey, can I give you some feedback, is that there is no use pouring your wisdom, pouring your insight, pouring your knowledge and understanding, pouring your feedback into a closed vessel. And there are all kinds of reasons why the person that we may have feedback for may be a closed vessel. They may simply be distracted, right? Maybe they're working, maybe they're thinking about the project that they have due tomorrow. And so they're just not, their mind is just not on what we have to say. It's very often that somebody on my team will tell me something, or my wife will tell me something, or my daughter will tell me something, and my mind will have been distracted, and I'm not even, though I'm hearing what they're saying, I may even be nodding and looking in their direction. I'm not really taking it in. And so I notice, actually, it's multiple times a day that I will say to someone, I'm sorry, I wasn't fully present. I wasn't really listening. Would you mind repeating that, please? And so this is the low level of closed vessel, is that they may simply be distracted. And by saying, hey, can I give you some feedback? They then say yes. And with that question and that commitment, they are bringing their attention to you and opening up the vessel of their mind, and now are ready to receive your feedback. So that's at a low level, the just a little bit closed vessel getting opened, so it's now ready to receive the wisdom, receive the input, receive the insight that is present in and available and valuable in your feedback. Now imagine, maybe I've just given a presentation. Maybe you've just given a presentation. You've just given a presentation and you did not do as well as you had hoped. You are now kicking yourself and you're feeling down. And I come up and I say, hey, John, can I give you some feedback? And you think, I am already kicking my own self in the butt. I do not need you to give me feedback right now. I am giving myself enough feedback, and you're not really present. You're not really available to hear what I have to say. And so, no, in that circumstance, is a really wise answer for you to say, no, not right now. Can you save it? Right. And so by asking you, can I give you some feedback? I'm giving you the opportunity to recognize you're not in a great place to receive that feedback right now. And you could be not in a great place because you're kicking yourself already. You may not be in a great place because the Schuster report is due in 3 hours, and your mind and your time need to be dedicated to that rather than to getting feedback right now. And so no, not right now is a really good answer in those circumstances. You may not be available really to receive feedback effectively because your dog died, and that's where your mind is. For whatever reason, your mind is not here and now and available to take in and really consider my feedback. All of those are really good reasons to say, no, don't give me feedback right now. And as a leader, I hope that you would say, no, now is not a great time to give me feedback. So those are the three big reasons why we recommend to you and to all of the leaders whom we train that when you're giving feedback, before you give feedback, in order for that feedback to be effective, you ask the question, can I give you some feedback? And the answer, no, is a perfectly acceptable and sometimes very wise answer to that question. So what if you've got to give feedback? Well, that's a really good question, right? It's kind of follows naturally from my guidance that you asked this question in advance. Well, what if they say no and you still have feedback that you need to give? Well, in those circumstances, you've got a few options. You can say when when might be better, right? Um, or even better than that, just come back at another time tomorrow. Come back tomorrow. Check in. Hey, yesterday wasn't good. John, can I give you some feedback now? The chances that John is going to say no twice in a row, very slim. At the very outside, if you're following other guidance of ours as a leader and you're conducting weekly one-on-ones with all of your direct reports, then the longest you're going to have to wait in order to give somebody feedback is to wait for your next one-on-one, because the permission for giving feedback in a one-on-one is implied. That's going to be part of what happens in a one-on-one, is that you're going to give and receive feedback to one another. That's a big part of what the one-on-one is all about. And so if you're not ready to receive my feedback today, and maybe you're not ready to receive my feedback tomorrow, then by the time our one-on-one rolls around in a week at the longest, then you're going to be ready to receive I'm going to have your permission to give you feedback, because that permission is implied in the context of a one-on-one. There are a couple of exceptions here. If someone is doing something egregious or dangerous, then by all means jump in and just deliver the information that you need to deliver. In these circumstances, perhaps you're not even going to think of this as feedback so much as it is, uh, uh, you know, a direction, right? I'm going to give you a direction. You just raise your voice to your colleague. You may not do that. Stop now, right? You raised your voice to a client. Stop now, right? Come with me, right? If someone is, I remember once working with a lifeguard who understandably started to raise his voice to a client. The client was being belligerent and incredibly rude, and it was completely understandable. And so I just said, hey, Avi, come with me, right? Let's go over here. And I walked him over to another corner of the waterfront, and I returned to the customer and I said, whatever it was, I had to say something to the effect of, this is the kind of behavior and decorum that we expect here. If you're going to want to continue to be a patron here, you're going to have to change. So because I wasn't part of the initial confrontation, I was chill. And so I was much better able to handle that input and give that responsiveness. And so I was in a better position. I didn't give him feedback in that moment. Instead, in that moment, I said, come with me. So I hope that I have, if not convinced you, then at least opened your mind to the idea that asking for permission before giving feedback is an incredibly valuable thing to do if what you want out of your feedback is the kind of behavior in the future, the kind of action and performance in the future that is going to be effective. This is critical to the effectiveness of feedback, and I hope that I've at least created some chink in your armor, some little bit of openness to the idea that asking for permission first is a really good way to go. I'm Aaron Schmuckler, CEO and co-founder at the S-Works, where we work hard every day to help you make work good for people and to make people good for work.